I'm Caity Massoud, and this is Flute Unscripted. I sit down with a new artist every week and share their uncensored stories with you. You're listening to Season 2, brought to you by Flute Center of New York, the exclusive marketplace for flutes. Join us and subscribe, and please stay tuned to the end of the episode for a very special Flute Center of New York code for our podcast listeners. Martha Ahrens hopped off a plane at JFK, jetted over to the Flute Center of New York to try some head joints, and graciously agreed to sit down with me for a quick talk. She was as easy to work with as I imagined she was with her longtime colleagues in the Cleveland Orchestra, where she maintained a position for 25 years. Before securing a spot with the orchestra in 1981, Martha graduated from the Cleveland Institute of Music and became principal flute with the North Carolina Symphony. It was always her goal to land an orchestra job, and she has shared her tips on section etiquette in past issues of Flute Talk magazine. In my research, I stumbled upon an old photo of the iconic Cleveland flute section from 1984, including Jeffrey Kaner, Bill Hebert, and John Rautenberg that I couldn't wait to share with Martha. She reminisced with me and also shared her current plans to explore another side of her career, performing chamber works with her husband and stepping in to sub with orchestras across the country. Thank you so much.
Oh, no problem.
For being here.
My husband's running up to White Plains the whole trip evolved out of him getting a new fingerboard for his violin.
I was going to ask, what brings you to New York?
Yeah, so he's kind of had a commission for the next couple of hours, so it's perfect.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I'm so glad it worked out that
No
we could
problem.
sit down and talk. When someone hears your name, they think of your legendary career.
Oh my gosh.
You're very humble about that, about your 25 years in Cleveland.
Well, it was a great orchestra and a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it always a goal of yours to come back and play in Cleveland? Because you started there.
Yeah, I
went out to North Carolina.
Right. I went to school for 2 years in Cleveland, and of course, it was shortly after Zell had died that I started, and I did worship the orchestra, and so obviously that was pretty special to go back there, but I can't say it was a singular goal. I just wanted to get into an orchestra, and ideally a good orchestra. So.
And you did that.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you were in training for that position with your teacher too? He was principal flute of
Cleveland
Orchestra.
I actually studied as well with Bill Hebert, who was a wonderful teacher in a totally different way, and sort of between them, their dual approach covered a lot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess there is a thing about the style of orchestras, and people talk about when students from a certain conservatory get into the orchestras that are associated with those schools. Is it nepotism or is it a style thing? And, I think there can be a little of each involved.
Yeah.
But of course, there's also the style of the Cleveland Orchestra has changed a great deal since I was there.
Did you notice it evolve as well during your time there?
Yeah, and I think Dochnani and Mazel, who hired me, did try to preserve the things that orchestra was most notable for. Now I think it's changed quite a bit from that.
And when you left in 2006? 2005.
Yeah.
How did you know that it was time to leave? And
that was just a very personal decision, and it didn't have to do with it, the music director or anything like that. I kind of fancied the idea of doing some other things in my life, and happened to really be lucky and leave at a time when I could sub and play extra in a lot of different orchestras, and that was actually the most fun time of my entire career. For about Well, up until just a few years ago, I was almost living out of a suitcase and being what I call, I don't know if I should be more discreet about this, but an orchestra whore. I used to refer to myself jokingly because I would play with anybody.
Yeah.
And that was really fun because you just go in and sometimes sort of save the day, and also you don't have to deal with any of the stuff that you deal with on a day-to-day job. It's just pure fun. And I worked most regularly, or really only regularly, with Philadelphia over those years. The other ones were one-time and two-time events. But I subbed as the piccolo player when Kaz took a sabbatical, and I went on 2 tours to Asia with them and played quite often with them, and it was just wonderful. I love that orchestra, and it was just refreshing to play in a different orchestra.
I was going to say, is it nice to kind of step in and be in different groups?
It is
instead
fun.
of being in the same group for all that time.
Yeah, it was really, it was so much fun. But I feel like I was very lucky in that respect, because I was facing possibly not getting that kind of work.
Yeah.
So.
And did Philadelphia feel a little bit like home too, because you were playing with Jeff Kaner?
Yes.
And you played together.
Yeah, we always had a really nice relationship, and he made that happen, actually.
Oh, great.
So I was very appreciative of.
There was a picture actually that I came across I wanted to show you, because I was reading up, and there's this great section photo.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. That photo went around again when Bill Hebert passed away last year. Yeah, that's a really fun picture.
I mean, the thing that struck me when I saw it was, I mean, a great section, number one. And number two, I mean, just from looking, it looks like a boys' club. I mean, there's so many men all around as well in the orchestra. Did it kind of feel like that at the time to you? Or?
Yeah, we didn't think quite the same way. Of course, things had started with the feminism movement and all that, but it's taken a while for people to change their thinking and not just sort of accept that. There have been no women principals in the Cleveland Orchestra.
Wow.
Laura Griffiths was principal oboe for a while, but she didn't get tenure. Beautiful player. So they're still kind of old school. Yeah. And I had a great time in that section, but and I was not the first woman in the wind section. I think I was. The oboe section had Betty Camise playing second oboe, and Pam Pesha Woods for a while was playing assistant principal. But and now there are more women. Then Linnea Nierheim came and played bass clarinet, and I don't even know half the orchestra now. It's really turned over.
I was going to ask you too, if you, in that turnover in the flute section as well, when you were leaving, were you on the committees, the panels, listening to the new flute section, to kind of your successors in a way? Or?
No, I was on the committee when Mary Kay got the job, so I heard that audition. But that was the only time. And there also, I think they've changed somewhat since I left, but they were very old school long after other orchestras had made rules about people not being involved if they're related to,
right.
They had some issues in the string section, which you probably know about. And they didn't have a screen, and they also didn't invite large numbers of people.
Yeah.
So, and they have great success. I mean, they hire good players, but I think gradually they've taken on some of those customs.
What are your thoughts in general about inviting lots of people for the first round of an audition?
Gosh, it's such a hard question. I mean, we've gone to bat over the years sometimes for someone who didn't have a good enough resume to get accepted, and said, you should listen to this person. It actually happened with the now second clarinet player there who replaced Dan Gilbert, and he won the job. So it's so hard to be fair to a large number of people, but I guess ideally, you want to give people a chance. And,
right.
And I've never liked the idea of multiple committees, because different people listen for different things. But of course, that's true within a single committee too. So it's really hard. My schoolmate when I first went to CIM was Elaine Duvas, who plays principal oboe in the Met, and just my impression from what she tells me is that they have very fair auditions. They use a screen up to the last second, and somehow they hear a lot of people and they get it done. And
They figured it out.
They figured it out, it
Yeah.
seems. Yeah.
Even Martha's own audition experience for the New York Philharmonic principal spot was less than conventional. She described her experience to me, and we chatted about the similar path her own teacher, Julius Baker, made from second flute with Cleveland to principal of New York. Baker encouraged Martha and, according to Jan Pritchard at Flute Network, praised her as one of his very best students. So in addition to your studies with Maurice Sharp, you also studied with Julius Baker.
Yeah.
I read somewhere that he also gave a glowing account of you being one of his favorite, very best students.
Oh my gosh, where is that?
You don't feel that way about
No. I mean, I'm very flattered. I'd
Yeah.
like to know who he said that to.
Why do you think you stood out to him as a student?
Gosh, I have no idea. But I was already a grad student at that point. He played second in Cleveland before he went from there to principal New York. And there was one point, even though Jean Baxter was kind of the heiress apparent of that job, I still went to audition before she became involved. And there was a point at which Janet Ferguson and I were like the last two standing, and we came and played a Tuesday concert that was set up as an audition, and it had the program was Afternoon of a Faun and Daphnis and the Prague Symphony and Siegfried Idol. And they had us both on stage, like sitting next to each other, and it was, you play, now you play.
Oh my God.
It was like interlocking, and I never went to interlocking, but I know all about challenges.
Yeah.
That was the most miserable thing. And then Maida just said, just flip a coin, which half you want to play. And we played the concert, and that was the end of it.
Yeah.
But Julie Baker took me out to lunch, and he was talking about how, I went from second flute in Cleveland to principal in New York, and he, but I wasn't too optimistic. It didn't seem like that was going to be the end of the story.
Yeah. What is one of your favorite memories of studying with him?
Just listening to him. I think most people agree that he was not a super hands-on teacher. He was like the diametric opposite of a Keith Underwood, for example. Yeah. He didn't explain stuff, and if you had technical problems, mechanical problems, just as an instrumentalist, he was not the person that was going to solve those for you. But I really learned a lot. I think it was the perfect time for me to go there, because I really needed to open up my sound. And Mo Sharp, Bill Hebert helped me with that too. He had a very different kind of sound from Mo Sharp. I didn't model my sound after Mo Sharp. He was from a generation of instrumentalists like Wummer, and singers who used a faster vibrato and a leaner sound, and that was just a stylistic thing from a time period. And but I always listened to people like Baker and Marie Panitz on records, and had that sound more in my ear, and that kind of vibrato. And so just to be there, he would play duets with me, and if you're the kind of person that can pick things up just from hearing something and having that concept, then it worked. Yeah. And it worked for me at that time. So I did definitely benefit from some time with him.
And you yourself as a teacher, how do you see yourself, and how do you prepare your students for success?
I'm a big explainer. I'm very verbal, if that's not obvious already. And I think I'm pretty good at analyzing things and sort of trying to customize things for students. So I just try to think of all the approaches I can for solving a problem, and if one of them clicks, that's great. And I guess that's the benefit sometimes of going to different teachers if you're not solving a problem with one, because just the way one person might explain something might resonate for you better. But I'm definitely very verbal. I do like to demonstrate, because I want to be able to communicate my idea of what I think is a good sound, or show them something about vibrato or interpretation. Of course, orchestral excerpts, a lot of people play for me.
And what is the collaboration with students like at Aspen?
Well, I'm not with the festival anymore. I was there for 19 years. It was wonderful. And I shared a class most of the time with Bonnie Boyd. And we were great friends and colleagues because we saw eye to eye on choosing the students, and I think we complemented one another. We were similar enough in the basics that we weren't being inconsistent with what we were telling the students,
right.
And at the same time complementing each other, because I think we probably used different imagery to convey certain things. So she liked having me teach her students. Normally she said she wouldn't want her students to study with her in the summer because they study with her all year.
Right.
But then they would study with me the second half. Before that, for a few years, I was sharing class with Mark Sparks until he was able to go there for the entire summer. I think that was when he went to St. Louis. Anyway, so I'm not there actually. Nowadays, I really miss teaching. I'm putting it out there. I have a couple of kind of forever students that come back to me or even play for me on Skype, which is really inadequate.
Yeah.
Really annoying sometimes. But I even put out word in Aspen if there are any talented high school students, but it's kind of a remote place. Outside of the summer, it's not much of a music center.
And now you're doing a lot of performing solo concerts. You have a CD?
Mostly,
Chamber CD?
There's one coming, actually.
Oh.
All right. So I have the one CD that I made with Francis Renzi, pianist, and Jason Vio, who is really hard to get to play with us nowadays because he won the Grammy for Best Solo Album. Boy, you're knowledgeable, by the way. But Paul Schoenfield just wrote a trio, which was commissioned by a pianist, Rita Sloan, whom we know originally from Aspen Festival. She's on the faculty at University of Maryland, and she grew up knowing Paul Schoenfield. And she decided to have the university commission a piece by him for our combination, which is great. We have found some really... Oh, I'm leaving something important out. My husband's violinist.
Oh, there you go.
And he was assistant concertmaster in Cleveland. So
that's where you met?
Yeah. So we found a few really, really great pieces originally written for that combination. Most people know this Ibert 2 interludes, and there's a trio by Nino Rota, who wrote the music for The Godfather, and it's really one of his best pieces of serious chamber music. It's
Never
like
heard
a
that.
blockbuster piece. It's very lyrical and beautiful. If you want to hear it before we record it, there's a good YouTube performance with, it's a recording with Guidon Kramer and I think a Swiss or German flutist, and I forget who's playing piano. Oh, maybe Martha Argerich. I'm not sure. I'm not sure who's playing piano, but if you just want to hear the piece. And then Bach wrote a couple of his trio sonatas specifically where he specified flute and violin, and one of them is in G major. And although people aren't in agreement whether Bach wrote it or one of his sons, but it's a beautiful piece either way. We play that a lot. And there's another piece we discovered by César Cui, who's one of the Russian Five. You probably heard of the Russian Five, but nobody can. Everybody remembers.
Can't remember him.
Right, he's the one. So it's like trying to remember the four tenors or the five tenors or whatever. So there's Mussorgsky, Borodin, Rimsky-Korsakov, Balakirev is hard to remember, and then Cui is the one nobody can remember. But it's a gorgeous piece. It's called Five Short Pieces, and it's absolutely charming. It's one of those pieces after each movement the audience goes, oh.
So now after this podcast, everybody should go out and perform it on their chamber recitals.
Right. So anyway, this getting back to the trio by Paul Schoenfield, it's a really great piece. It's profound. It's beautiful. It's virtuosic. It's very hard. And we're going to be recording it.
That's exciting.
And we're going to record the Rota Trio and some of this other stuff. So we've been doing mixed concerts where we each play solo stuff and we play some trios. We've been going for many years to a place called Rancho La Puerta, which is a fitness spa. It sounds like an unlikely place for concerts. It's in Mexico. It's in Tecate, which is near San Diego, but inland from Tijuana. And they attract a pretty intellectual, cultured demographics for their guests. And they have music pretty much every week. but much more now than when we started going there. And they have a beautiful place to play. The acoustics are wonderful, and we actually helped them find a Steinway B piano because they never had a decent piano for most of the time we've been going there. And we love playing there, and it's fun after years of playing in orchestra, although I do miss orchestra sometimes. But it's fun to play on a more intimate level.
So people can hear you on these recordings now and the one coming out.
Yeah, I don't know when it'll come out, but probably in 2019 sometime.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another recording they can hear you on, a big famous one, are the Beethoven complete symphonies.
Yeah, there were a lot of
Cleveland.
recordings during the years I was in the orchestra.
What was that like? Did you know you were kind of doing something so, making such a mark in the history of recording that people were going to reference so many times in the future? Or was it just...
No, I mean, it just seems like there's so many recordings of all 9 Beethoven symphonies. But on the other hand, I grew up listening to records, and I remember classical stations. They were commercial classical stations. Well, there are some still, right? Like QXR.
Yeah.
And I think Boston has one. But I remember listening in high school to a different so-called Big Five orchestra. I don't believe in the Big Five anymore. There's so many good orchestras. And
why do you think that is? Because the musicians are just so talented now as well.
Yes, because competition.
Yeah.
Because now you can make a living at it, and if you're lucky, a really good one. And it used to be that, okay, so when I went to North Carolina, the winds were stronger than the strings, and the brass were stronger than the strings. But nowadays, every orchestra, I must have played in about 12 orchestras, 13, 14 since I left Cleveland. San Diego, they weren't all, Milwaukee. All these orchestras are wonderful now, and the string sections are really strong too, because it's as we say, great work if you can get it.
Yeah.
So
we're out of time. Thank you so much, Martha.
This was really fun. I had no idea.
I'm glad. I know we kind of sprung it on you.
Yeah.
Thanks for being a good sport.
Oh no, I this is so much fun. I came by and I had no idea that we'd get to do this. So
well, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Keep an eye out for Martha performing concerts at Rancho La Puerta, and an ear out for her upcoming album. You can, of course, hear her now on many iconic Cleveland Orchestra recordings, in addition to her new projects and engagements. Thanks to Martha Ahrens. Martha's playing was featured in this episode with recordings of the Hummel Sonata in D major from her CD, History of the Tango, and a recording of her on Beethoven 7 with the Cleveland Symphony. This has been an episode of Flute Unscripted. This podcast is sponsored by the Flute Center of New York. Visit their website at flutesforsale.com for the largest selection of new and pre-owned instruments. Use this season's promo code LISTEN for a special deal of $50 off any purchase of $4.99 or more. You can follow the Flute Center on Instagram and like them on Facebook to stay up to date on the latest events and masterclasses. Special thanks to our owner Phil Unger, the Flute Center team, and Stefan Huskoldson for our theme music.